occasion, and it's a great honor and a privilege to chat to. It's not going to be an interview, to chat to everybody's favorite Comrades Marathon runner, Alan Robb. I know I tried hard to get that position, but everybody likes Alan the most. So we have Alan Robb here. For those of you who are foolish enough not to know anything about his career, I think he's done 40. How many
44.
Comrades, Al? 40? 44 Comrades, and he has the most gold medals for finishing in the top 10 of any male runner, 12 gold medals, and he won 4 times and was the first runner back in 1978 to break 5.5 hours. So it's a phenomenal record. And then in addition to that, also lots and lots of road race victories all over the place. And I thought what I would do, Alan, is try and emphasize the simplicity of running in our day. You know, it was just simple. Now it's so complicated. They've got shoes with carbon plates, and they've got gels, and they've got all sorts of funny diets and stuff. And I loved it. I don't know where I saw somewhere a long time ago. You were asked for some advice, and you said, just get on with it, which I thought was great advice. Just get on with it. Al, so can you, I think just to get some background, I know when you were at school, you were a swimmer.
Yeah, I swam a lot at school in high school years and that, and even actually managed to swim for Transvaal once. But yeah, so I was a pretty good swimmer, and I only really started running when I was in matric, and that was only due to we got a new headmaster at our school, and he decided to introduce cross-country running at the school, and that's what got me into running. And carried on through that, you know, into the army, and a couple of years later only did I start road running. But those are 2 sort of interesting stories, which will take a few minutes.
And then, yeah. So tell me the story that you went, and I might not have my facts right. You went to your first road race, was the 32K race out towards, I don't know, Krugersdorp or something like that. And you won it. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd been running it, but I used to run about 10Ks a day. And then I just saw this race advertised. I saw it in the paper. And I just asked my mom and dad if they would come and drive next to me. And I just thought I'd try the race and see how it went. And it started at the Joburg City Hall and went all along on Deckers Road to Krugersdorp. It was, those days, 20 miles. And I was fortunate enough to run well enough, managed to win the race and break Dennis Morrison's record.
And I'm sure, Alan, massive prize money.
Massive prize money. I've still got the prize I got. It was a little salt and pepper set in a wooden frame, and which I've still got. That was my prize. No cash. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love telling the people about what we got in those days. You know, salt and pepper set. Or I won a marathon at the Golden West Marathon in Potch, and I got a Leonard Cohen record. That was the stuff that we used to get in those days. And then
one of my prizes. One of my prizes that I also enjoy telling people, in '76, when I came second in 2 oceans, my prize for coming second was a tog bag.
Wow, that's massive. That is massive. So I'll get to 2 oceans, Alan, because it's one of my favorite topics. But then you won that 32K race. When did you turn your attention to Comrades? Like that same year or what?
Yeah, that same year. You know, after I won that Krugersdorp race, guy Dave Pritchard was there, and he was watching, and he said I must join Germiston Callies, which I actually intended doing anyway. And from there, the next race I ran, actually on that race, I got chosen for Southern Transvaal to run at Interprovincial Champs. I ran that, and then I ran the Corki, and then I ran Comrades. So Comrades was really the 4th race I'd ever run it, and I just based training. Some of the Kelly's guys told me, yeah.
And you came third, Alan.
Yeah.
On an up run. And then 1975, people don't know that, but 74, 75 were both up runs, because 75 was the 50th anniversary of Comrades, and they went up. Now they seem to be doing the anniversary down, but 74, 75 was up, and then you were fifth in that run. And then the following year, 1976, was your first down run, and you won that. But you took a wrong turning. Tell us about that. You took a wrong turning on the course.
Yeah, it was after halfway, coming down sort of through. I can't remember exactly where it was, sort of Westville area, and that because those days, you know, that second half we didn't have highways, you know, like the highway that we come into Durban now. You know, you used to go sort of through Westville and Pinetown, the streets, and somewhere in Westville, I just came to a place where the road sort of forked, and there wasn't a marshal or anything, and I took the wrong fork, and I ran down, and some guy standing on the side of the road told me I'd taken the wrong route, but he told me just to turn left where I was, and I'd get and a block away I'd get back on the route. So I didn't really, you know, cut short or do anything longer. It was just probably a couple of blocks that I went wrong. But anyway, fortunately, I had quite a good lead over Gavin Woodward then, so it didn't make any effect on the times or anything like that.
Kevin Woodward was an English runner who was trying to win. Yeah, he landed up coming second.
I think. Yeah, he came out from the UK, and Gavin used to run flat out from the start. I mean, he went out from the start, and by halfway he was 6 minutes ahead of everybody else. And it was only then, you know, the second half that we started to reel him in, and he started tiring a bit, and we eventually caught him. Yeah, but he finished second. I think he was about 6 minutes behind.
Yeah. Okay, and then of course, Alan, then you got your hat trick, 77 up run with a record, and then for those who don't know, I've rated in my day the 3 greatest comrades that I ever saw, but I would probably now have to add Gerda Steyn. But taking Gerda out, I'm going to say that the 3 greatest comrades I ever saw in my running career was Frith van der Merwe, going under 6 hours for the down run and coming 15th overall. And then Alan's 1978 down run, where he won by 20 minutes. You can't actually believe that, 20 minutes in the lead, and it wasn't a Mickey Mouse field. It was there were a lot of good runners in there, and Alan won by 20 minutes. And then the other great run that I always rate is, of course, Wally Hayward, running Comrades just shy of his 80th birthday and in under 10 hours. But those 3. And 1978 was the end of that. We thought, now what do we do? How do any of us, must have been the same feeling that Gerda Steyn's opposition have now. What do we do to beat her? You know, it was also Alan there. What do we do? So, and then you won again in 1980. So Alan won 3 downs, and that's what I thought I would do a bit later on, Alan, is just ask you for your advice for a down run a little bit later, because I think that's relevant because you won 3. But what I want to know is, how did you train in those days? I mean, what did you guys do? What was the training? Like 160 Ks a week from January, or what was it?
We'd probably do it, you know, starting in January, we'd probably be doing, you know, good 100 to 120 Ks a week, and we'd increase it to about 150. And then, you know, obviously when they were closer to Comrades, when you're doing your long runs, or like on the Easter weekend when you do long runs, you'd probably get up to, I think probably the most I ever got to was probably about 170 in a week. But, you know, we mixed it up with, you know, long runs. And I started probably in 76, one of probably the first Comrades runners. You know, everybody thought I was mad starting to do speed work, because I wasn't very fast, you know. So I used to do a lot of speed work at Wanderers with some of the guys, and then and because I wasn't a great hill runner, I lived near the bottom of Sylvia Pass, and I used to train up and down Sylvia Pass a hell of a lot. So, I introduced sort of speed and hills with that kind of comrades running, which very few people did.
And then Alan, I'm going to be honest. When I started thinking that maybe I could do well, I started watching what you were doing, and I stole from you. So I noticed that you were doing speed work and that, and it was paying off. And then I also noticed that on a Saturday, you were running cross country for Germiston Callies in the A League. And so 12Ks cross country across a dusty, like over the mine dumps or at Galuli's farm or somewhere like that. And then I started doing that as well, because I thought if you're doing it, there's got to be something that's correct about that. But there weren't a lot of you didn't get a lot of comrades runners in that field. It would be all your Kevin Shaws and Billy Farrells and Gert Duravards and those people.
Yeah, there weren't many, and I just just the guys at Kelly's got me into cross country, because Kelly's then had a hell of a good cross country team, probably one of the best in the country at that time.
Very strong. Yeah.
And they got me to come and do a bit of cross country running, which obviously I didn't have the speed to keep up with the guys like Kevin Shaw and that type of thing. But I think it was very good. It was a 12K run, and you didn't have any seconding point on the 12K, and it was through the dust, and it was hard. And I thought it was just tough and sort of strength training, really, cross country.
Yeah, it was very hard, dusty. Then at the end, I think, didn't they give us a quarter of an orange to suck on or something at the end, or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
Yeah, it was hard, and no prize money, obviously, or no prizes. And then, Alan, I wanted to just ask. Sorry, I'm diverging slightly, but one of the things that I find very amusing is what you paid for your first trip to Comrades. That you paid for an airfare and 2 hotel rooms, or 2 nights at a hotel for Comrades. What was that?
I can't remember what I was paid at the hotel, but my return air flight to Durban from Joburg was 45 Rand. And obviously, my Comrades entry was 5 Rand in those days. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my shoes cost 4.95 Rand.
What were they, by the way? Tiger Bostons, or what were they?
Yeah,
Jaywalks.
I ran Comrades in Tiger Bostons, but then when I did shorter races, I ran in Tiger Jaywalks. Yeah, which is
okay. That, by the way, was a piece of canvas on top of a rubber sole.
I've still got one of the pairs. I've got it in a box in the garage. Yeah, it was very, very thin soles and sort of a canvasy nylon top. So no cushioning or anything like that. Yeah.
And then you could get, I think, if I remember, you could get one of 3 colors: white, red, or blue. That was it, I think.
I used to. I lived in Highlands North, and there was a shop called John Walpert Sports, which was the shop before Johnny Halberstadt bought it. And it was, so you used to go there to Mr. Walpert and ask him for a pair of shoes. And he said, well, so I've got a pair of Adidas and a pair of Tigers, and both blue. Which one do you want? And they're both 4.95. That was it. You had a choice of 2 shoes. Yeah.
4.95. Yeah. And then, Alan, your pre-race ritual. Correct me again if I'm wrong, but you used to go to the same restaurant and have a cheeseburger and chips and 2 castles. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah, we'd go to a different place. In Durban, we used to quite often stayed at the Four Seasons Hotel. I don't know if they're still there.
Yeah.
From the Father's Moustache, where we used to go after Comrades. And then in Maritzburg, we used to stay with some friends. But yeah, that was, I didn't have any fancy diet, just a burger and chips and a beer, yeah.
And then, Alan, the build-up in our day. So this is not me talking about me, but I'll just tell you, when I started running, there was a build-up of races that you did in the Transvaal at that time. And that was, you did night race, which was 25 Ks around the streets of Germiston, I think 3 laps. Then you did Striders, 32K.
Yeah.
Then you did Vaal Marathon or something similar. Then you ran the Corki and then Comrades. Were you more or less the same in those days?
Yeah, I was more or less the same, except I very seldom ran Vaal. I used to go and do the George Claassen in Pretoria, which
okay.
You know, you've done it as well. In fact, we've both won it, I think. And that was probably very few people in Pretoria realized that the George Claassen actually was a standard marathon. And on the opposite side of Pretoria, we used to run to Hartbeespoort Dam and back.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done George Claassen, of course, named after George Claassen, who won Comrades in 1962 or something like that. And it was Wynand Claassen, the Springbok captain, was his father.
Yeah.
And Wynand went on to run 14 Comrades. And then, okay, so that was Alan, in the race itself, what did you run on? What was your secret formula? You know, like now everybody's got their drinks and a bit of this and a bit of that. What did you run on?
My comrades, most of my comrades, I've always run on just on water and Coke. That's it. You know, I never had anything to eat or anything like that. And you know, in fact, my first comrades, I didn't have a second. I had my younger sister and my cousin following me, and I think I had about 3 or 4 drinks on the whole route. But that's basically what I've always drunk.
Okay, so it was that flat Coke. I mean, just Coke.
Yeah, it was if I got it from somebody, it was normally flat. But and you know, those days we didn't have water tables or anything like that either. So you had to rely on your seconds or rely on somebody along the route to give you something to drink. Whereas nowadays you've got, you know, all the tables with everything to eat and drink. You know, you actually get spoiled. I think people eat too much and drink too much sometimes on the run, I think, these days.
Yeah, they have a lot. I mean, my first comrades, my family handed me drinks out of the window of the car while they were driving alongside me. You could do that then. Imagine the chaos now. And then, Alan, the Corki. Personally, I think for everyone I know, most people won't know what the Corki was. I think it's one of the saddest things ever that the Corki Ultra no longer exists. It was a 56K race, same distance as Two Oceans, much more prestigious in those days. Two Oceans was still, I mean, in the early 70s, it was like this funny, I remember it being like this funny hippie race down in Cape Town, and why would you even bother to go? Because you've got to fly all the way to Cape Town. Whereas you could do the Corki that in the early days went from Pretoria Fountains all the way to Herman Immelman in Germiston. And it had nothing going for it. I mean, it was ugly, goes through an industrial area. The only pretty thing is the Cosmos are out, but it was known as a slow poison because it went slightly uphill all the way or flat. And at the end of the Corki, there was a formula. Do you know it, Alan? Where there was a formula where you could work out what your comrade's time would be. You doubled it and added 10 minutes. You doubled it and took off 10 minutes.
Something like that. You double your Corki time and take off half an hour, something like that. And that should be your comrade's time. And they were always, it was pretty accurate.
That gave you a
well. But
very accurate.
like you say,
I mean, and Alan won. It's terribly sad. Alan won 5. The past winners is like the who's who: Wally Hayward, Jackie Meckler. They all won it. Hosea Charlie, Bob Delamott, Frith van der Merwe. You know, everybody ran it, and then gradually, I think it just couldn't cope. And then it might also have been slightly pirated by Dam and Lost Corp or something like that.
Yeah, it was.
Maybe, I don't know.
Unfortunately, Corki, that road just became so busy, especially
And too
through
dangerous.
Kempton Park and that areas, with the traffic and that. And, they also battled with sponsors, and also with it being a point-to-point race. They were slowly changing, with like
Yeah.
you start and finish at the same place and all of that. So it slowly started down, and when they just couldn't get a sponsor anymore, then they just decided to stop it. But yeah, very unfortunate, because it was such a good race, just a training run for comrades. Yeah,
just a perfect training run, and it was everybody did it. It was like you had to go. I still have memories of driving on the road to Pretoria with just a long line of taillights of cars all going there. Everybody's going to Corki. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have that anymore. Alan, what would you advise now to comrades run, especially novices with 2 weeks to go? What they should do? What
I would just keep ticking over this week. Just easy running. 8Ks or 10Ks. A day slowly, and you can maybe still do if you want to do a 15 or a 20 on this coming Sunday, and then next week just rest. Also, just do the odd run. It depends also on how you feel. I mean, I always used to still ran every day right up until the day before Comrades. I'd still go and do an 8 or a 10K run the day before, and that. But I would just suggest the guys just take it very easy, but just keep on running, because I found if you suddenly stop for a week and do nothing, you just don't feel right. I think you just got to keep ticking over. And like I still, in the last couple of years, I do park runs, so I always go and do a park run the day before as well at wherever I'm staying. Yeah.
But do you do that slowly, or do you?
I can run it in about 28 minutes or so, just under 30 minutes, something like that sort of pace. Yeah.
Oh, cheapers. Okay. Sometimes I dream of running at 28. Anyway. And then Alan, other races, like during the year, SA Champs and stuff like that. I mean, you mentioned that you did Southern Transvaal Champs. I mean, there's no such thing anymore. Southern Gauteng. Weren't the colors light blue? I remember saying about they were light blue or something.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, still got my old Southern Transvaal base. It was light blue with the gold stripe going down from your left to your right, left top shoulder to your hip, like that. Those were the old colors, yeah. And we used to have Southern Transvaal Marathon Champs, also before Comrades. And then there was also interprovincial champs that they used to have most of the times down at the coast, very often East London or PE and that type of thing. So
interprovincial, yeah.
Yeah. So I ran those a couple of times as well.
Yeah, they don't have those. Yeah, they don't. And Alan, I remember your 2 seconds. You had these two guys who had funny crash helmets.
Yeah.
Who used to second you, and they were brilliant. I think. I mean, they leapfrogged.
Yeah, there were two brothers who I knew from. In fact, we were at different schools, but we used to go to Boy Scouts together, and got them. They decided to come and second me, and they eventually, when second in stop, they actually ran. Each of them ran a couple of Comrades, and the one guy lives in Australia now, but the other brother I'm still very friendly with. Lives down in Cape Town. But they did a hell of a good job for me. They were on motorbikes. Each on a different motorbike with a driver, and they were on the back of the motorbike, and then they'd get off, run next to me with a bucket and sponge and water and whatever, and then back on the bike. And actually, by the time the Comrades was finished, they were probably more tired than I was.
Yeah. I mean, we know seconds forget to forget to second themselves, and they get tired. Yeah, whatever. Just by the way, everyone listening, please, if you've got questions, please go ahead. Either to Alan or me, And have we got Gerda listening? It says, welcome, Gerda. Gerda, if you need some advice on how to run a good down run, it says, welcome, Gerda, on my thing here. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, please go ahead and ask. What would your advice say? Alan, this is going to sound a bit arrogant, and I don't mean that, but because I did win the down run, but I always thought that I never quite worked out the down run properly, but you did. So I was just trying to think, what would you say for the pacing or whatever for somebody who's running the down run, especially somebody for the first time? I mean, how do they pace themselves for that run?
Okay, well, first of all, for the down run, I think my style of running, my shuffling style of running, helps you on the downhill.
Yeah.
I don't take as much pounding, and also I was fortunate, like I said, I wasn't a very good hill runner, but I was a very good downhill runner, and very few guys could catch me on the downhill. But looking at the actual downhill race. As you know, the first half of the downhill is actually uphill. So you've got
up, yeah.
And they're not all these the big 5 hills, although in Chonga is around halfway. But they're all these little bumps. You go down Polly Shorts, and then you climb out of the bottom of Polly Shorts, you climb out to the Lion Park, and all the way up to Umlaas Road. There are all these little bumps along, we call them no-name brand hills, along the route, which take a bit out of you all the time. So the down run, you've got to sort of hold it sort of right, after the top of Nchonga, when you're going down into Drummond, because you've got to climb out of Drummond, and you've got the back of Boerters Hill.
Yeah.
So the down only starts really at Hillcrest, when you start then just pummeling downhill all the way into Durban. So it's not a.
And then your legs will
Let's actually look at the profile of Comrades, study the profile, and you'll actually see where the actual downhill, the main part of the downhill starts, and it's only in the way after halfway, Hillcrest area, with the big, and it takes about pounding. I've seen guys walk down Fields Hill, and then you still got Cowie's Hill, other side Pound Town, and full stretch in Pound Town from bottom of Fields to Cowie's in Pound Town is not easy. You come down Fields nicely, running down, and you suddenly hit this flat of Pound Town. It's like running into a brick wall sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then Cowie's at the end of Pinetown, and they always call it the Pinetown Flats, but it's not flats, it rolls. And there's also that subway where you go underneath and come up now. Yeah,
that's right.
And then Cowie's, and then all the way. Then you on the other side of Cowie's, you drop flat out.
Yes,
thanks, Gerda. Lovely to see you. And then
lovely
for you to join.
I always see Gerda at the George the day after Comrades. Is she going to be? Ask her if she's going to be there.
She'll be at a lot of places, I'm sure.
Yeah, she always comes to the George pub, and at Mhlongo. So I'll see you there.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got some questions. At last, Johannes said, "Hello, Alan and Rob." No, Alan and Bruce.
Okay.
It's Alan, Rob, and Bruce. But anyway, what to eat in the morning? I had bacon and eggs before without problems, but did follow this with 2 Imodiums. Okay, what did you eat, Alan? Nothing.
I would just have toast and tea. The days when I was running, when I was winning, I'd just have toast and tea the morning before, and that was it. And I didn't eat anything along the route at all. But then I was doing it sort of in 5.5 hours. I didn't need to. But guys who are doing now, if they're doing sort of 10 or 10.5 hours, you've got to have something to eat, and you've got to eat along the route. It's 10 hours is a long time to be without anything to eat. But I think whatever you used to, you've been having at other races the day before. Yeah, just carry on, but keep yourself well hydrated and have these these energy bars and bananas and whatever along the route.
Yeah, so I had, by the way, I had nothing, Alan. I just used to have 2 cups of strong black coffee and then go. And also, it sounds arrogant because you said it first before me. We were finished after 5.5 hours, so it's a bit, we didn't quite soon. Yeah, it's a different. I think it's a. How do you guys think your times would have differed, if at all, if you had run in today's high-tech shoes? I don't know about you, Alan, but I don't think, those thin little things that we wore, we still ran fast times. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. When I look at times and that, I think the shoes now are definitely probably a bit more comfortable. And I actually saw an article probably about a year ago that some guy reckoned that you get these shoes probably get about a 5% better than the old shoes and that type of thing. But I think our times, your and my times compared, like you see the record time was what 5:14 was it last year or 2 years ago, and you look at our times. I mean, he ran 86.5 Ks. We ran 90 Ks. So you take 3.5 Ks off my 5:29, straight away it takes me down to a 5:15.
Exactly.
Half Ks, and same with you. You would have also,
Yeah, the same. But Alan, I don't want to sound like a when-we, but when we ran down run, we didn't turn onto the highway to Tollgate Bridge. We went down into the bowels of the earth, right down. If I can use Psalm 23, down into the valley of the shadow of death, and you're on your own. The Lord is not with you, and we had to then run our way up. We had to run our way up past Westridge tennis courts. I don't know if you remember that, Alan. And then then over the top and down the Berea, but on the road above the canyon, so to speak. Those concrete canyons that you run down now, they're horrible. And we had wonderful crowd support, but we went down a long way before we came up. But anyway, at the end of the day, it's like if you said to me, Bruce, you can win one more Comrades, but it's going to be the slowest Comrades for 50 years, I'll say I'll take it. If you're going to win another, if you can win another.
No, definitely quicker now on the highway than it was when we ran.
Yeah, much quicker. It's soulless. It's a bit soul destroying because there's nothing. There's not the crowd support. I mean, I remember going down towards Old Fort Road with the Indian population there, all screaming, going mad. I mean, the air is thick with the smell of biryani. And the Indians are screaming, "You can do it!" and all, go, And that was wonderful crowd support. Yeah, John F. I've already congratulated Alan about Liverpool. That's enough now. You notice he's wearing a red shirt. That's enough now. It's the next season started. How did you keep? Geda mentioned the other day to run down Fields Hill using your hamstrings to save your quads. How do you do that? I don't know. All I know is yeah, carry on, Alan.
I just say, you didn't really think of those kind of things when you ran. And as I say, I think my shuffling style, helped me, tremendously in the downhills. Yeah.
If you want to see it, try and get hold of an old video when they show the history of the race. You can see Alan's shuffling style. It's unbelievable. It's very short strides, a little pitter-patter, but going downhill, it was so fast. But he wasn't smashing. I've got a photograph somewhere of the two of us running down Bothers, and I'm taking a huge stride, and you're taking a little stride alongside me. But you can see I'm going to hit the road, bang, when my leg comes down. So it's just Hi, Gerda. I still have my 2019 race bib waiting to get it signed by you. Oh, okay. John, how did you keep yourself injury free? Did you do a lot of mobility recovery work, Alan?
In fact, we did nothing. We never did anything like gym
Nothing,
work or anything like that, or stretching. You didn't. Those were unheard of. In those days. So you just basically looked after yourself, and I was fortunate enough to stay injury free for a long time. You got your odd niggles and stuff like that, but
yeah.
any kind of strength training was a no. Not heard of.
Yeah, so one of my running heroes in those days was Rob de Castella, Deke from Australia. And they asked him about stretching and about mobility. He said he just runs the first K slowly and then picks it up from there. That was his approach. And then starts to go a bit faster. So what would be your strategy for running in the crowded field that we have nowadays? Yeah, that's
Sure.
That is hard.
It's difficult, when you see the pictures of the crowds, the guys running, like sardines, shoulder to shoulder. I think it's damn difficult to have any kind of strategy. And as we were talking about earlier before the show, when you come up behind one of like a 9.5 or a 10-hour bus that's got 250 people running all in a mob, to try and get through them or past them, I think it's become pretty difficult these days. It can probably cost you time as well.
Yeah, and to try and run around people is, and then probably the most irritating thing is when somebody stops in front of you and starts walking with no warning. You got into a rhythm, you're following somebody, and then suddenly they stop. Boom.
Yeah.
Then you run into the
especially
back of them.
especially at the water tables.
Yeah, at the water tables. You've got to signal. I signal when I'm going to a water table. So I'm going in. I make it obvious I'm going in, because you can fall. Except the one thing is, Comrades runners are mature runners, and by that I mean their experience. A Comrades runner's got a PhD in long distance running by the time they get to Comrades, because they've done a qualifying marathon, they've done a whole lot of races, they've done an ultra, and so they do kind of know the etiquette. Most of the time, they know the etiquette of running a major race. Apart from the finish line with hi Alan, what is your favorite section of the down route apart from the finish line?
Probably the top of Fields Hill, because you can see the sea
for the first time. Yeah, and you got 21 to go or something, and some wise guy says, let's sprint, guys, we're nearly there.
Yeah, we're nearly there now.
You can see the sea.
20K race to the finish. Yeah.
Now, what did you used to describe it as, Alan? 3 25K training runs and a 15K sprint to the finish line. Didn't you say that once?
That's right. Yeah. We split the race up into 25s and then a 15K sprint to the finish.
Yeah. Going back to Barbara and her strategy for running in a crowded field, it might be this year with the 2 starts that it won't be as bad. There's going to be some benefits, to 2 starts, less crowding maybe. Yeah. I can't guarantee it, but down run in Pietermaritzburg is always cold, it's always dark, and it's always very narrow, and you've got to watch out that you don't trip. Yeah,
you have to. Yeah, the road's very narrow, going down, right through Polly Shorts, down Polly Shorts, and up to the line park. It's narrow, but yeah, as you say, the 2 starts, so there's probably about 12,000 in each start. Because I saw a picture a little while ago. Of the year 2000, the Millennium Year, when they had 20,000 runners. I saw a picture of that, and people were just running shoulder to shoulder like sardines. And so I think with the 2 starts,
2000 was
12,000 in each, will probably be a lot easier. Yeah.
Sorry, Sham. When the pain and doubts hit, where do you find inspiration? So, Alan, what?
Sure, I think you just got to dig deep and try and think big and think that that you're going to get over the pain, because at Comrades, you're always going to have a bad patch, always somewhere along the line, whether it be near the start or the middle or near the finish, you're going to have a bad patch somewhere. It's very seldom that the guys at Comrades say that they have had an actual trouble-free run. But my 1978 run was probably my most perfect run I've ever had. Didn't have pain, stitches, cramps, or anything like that. Everything just went well on the day. But it's very seldom. I've had plenty of times when you just have a bad patch. And I mean, that's the time in 72, 82, when we raced and going down Fields Hill, I just had a bad patch. You pulled away, and eventually it was line 5th, and it was only towards the end that I managed to suddenly come right and come back to finish 2nd. But you were too far in front. But everybody's going to have a bad patch somewhere.
Yeah, I loved Gerda last year saying she had a bit of a moment of doubt on Harrison Flats. I remember her being interviewed. She had a bit of doubt on Harrison Flats. Can I hold this pace the whole way to the end? I might be wrong, but I vaguely remember like that. So you got to say everybody's going to have doubts. You also have to say to yourself that like 88% of the field makes it. The people who don't make it start with an injury. Like John, who asked us a question earlier, his nickname is John Hamstring Clark, but he sorted out his hamstring. But you're going to have, and so I always used to say, okay, just get to the next seconding table, and if I'm not trying to win, I mean, obviously, get to the next seconding table, and you can reward yourself with a little walk and a drink, and then you'll go again, or whatever. Just set little goals that get you there, and you'll be amazed, and suddenly you realize you're there. Charmaine, how did we mentally prepare for the race? I have trained so hard. Okay, don't worry, Charmaine. But my mind is the one that needs training right now. So what was your best? What's your best? Because you say, in fact, do a sub 9 hour. What's your best so far? But type it in order. But you can do, you can do it. Sub 9 hours. 9:06. Okay, it's calling you. Charmaine, it's calling you. Sub 9 hours is calling you. Yeah, that's it. Downhill run.
No, you got to prepare yourself now. These next 2 weeks. Mentally prepare yourself and know sort of what time you want to go through certain distances in, and almost sort of mentally start picturing yourself coming across the finish line in like Charmaine in sub 9 or something like that, or I don't know, people who
under 24
read positive things about running or whatever, or play your favorite songs and stuff like that. One song that I used to sing, listening to, I can't remember what it exactly was called. It was Rod Stewart had a song about Terry Fox. Remember Terry Fox, the guy that cancer went across Canada?
With the man with an artificial limb.
Yeah, and that's what you do.
He ran across Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next 2 weeks you just got to prepare yourself mentally.
I quite like the fact of having some music. I get inspired by music, so every year I'd probably have a theme song that works for me, and then maybe read up about the history of the race. Get a history of the race book and read it up, because and look at it, and because when it gets tough, you need to be able to say to yourself, this is not the Johnson Crane. I'm not knocking the Johnson Crane, by the way, but this is not the Johnson Crane. This is Comrades. This is the Big Mama. This is one of the world's most famous races, and I'm going to do it. And finally, the last thing to remind yourself is that tens of thousands of people have been in the same situation as you, and they've finished. And thousands of people have been very close to a Bill Rowan, and they've got a Bill Rowan. Right. Any more questions? Otherwise, Alan, you're not running this year because you've been struggling with the injuries.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, I'm feeling right and feeling fine and been, I've done, a reasonable amount of training, but, nowhere near what I should have done. But at the moment, unfortunately, I'm suffering with terrible burning feet and pins and needles in my feet, and it's just very uncomfortable to run. And I can probably run about 20 or 25 Ks with it, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And last year it was terrible. The last 10 Ks I walked most of the way, and I thought, no, and it just doesn't seem to want to come right. So I thought, I can't, if it starts at 20 Ks, and I'm not going to run 90 Ks with this pain in my feet. Yeah. So I'll be at the finish.
And yeah, because your mates would not like to see you at the finish having not finished.
Yeah,
it's not a pretty sight. Alan Robb slightly depressed. Rather be happy. Rion has said, what is the minimal average kilometers to train for comrades? Would you gentlemen suggest? Well, it's an open-ended question, Alan, don't you think? Because it depends who you are.
Depends what you want to do. If you just want to finish or something like that, I normally, in these last couple of years, I've been doing between January and Comrades, I've been doing probably about 1,500 kilos, and I've been running sort of 10 hours. So I've got my wife sitting next to me. She's run eight Comrades, and her maximum mileage, although she ran between 11 and 12, and her maximum mileage was 800 kilos between January and Comrades. So it just depends what you want to do. It depends on your ability and everything like that. A lot of things.
Okay, Matt, is it true that you once said at the 56K board, only 2 oceans left to run, and that several competitors have dropped off the pace? I need to answer that question, Matt, because I was there. It was the 82 down run. It was cold. It was raining a little bit, if you remember that, Alan. It was quite chilly and whatever, and we were all a bit wet. And there was a big pack of runners. And we were all running together. Alan didn't say only 2 oceans left to run. As we ran past the board that said 56 to go, he said, guys, we're on the start line of 2 oceans. And that was bang. We lost about 6 runners in one go because they all suddenly thought, yo, we've got 2 oceans to go. So Alan, my experience is a man of very few words in a race, but every now and again he says something that really can be sharp.
Yeah, I still chirp things like that as well when I'm even at races these days. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't believe how often now I hear, with 5Ks to go, I hear people, other runners and spectators saying just a park run to the finish. Quite amazing to hear it coming. And now we all know what a park run is. It's 5Ks, and you never used to hear that before. So that's quite amazing. Yeah. Alan, and then I know you said you worked on your speed, but did you ever, go and do shorter distance races and, like SA 10K or even on the track, like running a 5,000 on the track or anything like that?
No, I never ran a race on the track, but I used to train a lot on the Wonders track and do 400s and 800s and that with quite a few of the guys there. Every week I would run a time trial, most of them at Old Ed's in Joburg because it was the most convenient and it was probably the most competitive time trial in Joburg. I mean,
it was.
You had to run under 27 minutes to finish in the first 30 or something like that. you know. And
Yeah, for 8Ks. For 8Ks.
I'd run 24 minutes for 8Ks and still wouldn't even come in the top 5, you know. But I specifically did, you know, quite a lot of, well, those days they were 16 or 10 milers, you know, 16Ks. And I mean, I could run 50 minutes for 10 miles. I could run 50 minutes. And there weren't half marathons weren't around then either. It was, you know, 20 milers or 10 milers. There wasn't anything in between. So.
Yeah, I think we need to explain to the younger runners that when we started, Alan, the textbooks we read were all American and British, and everything was in miles. So when you say we're doing the 32K race, it's 20 miles. And we never had a SA 15K champs. We had an SA 16K champs because it was 10 miles. And club time trial was 5 miles, was 8Ks. That's it. And then gradually we sort of started becoming bilingual, so to speak. We had to do them both, kilometers and miles, but it took a while.
Yeah. No, I did a lot of short races, and you know, just to try and make me run fast and be quicker, which I think helped a lot. But those days were different. We didn't have the guys to tell you to, like you do, go and give motivational talks and tell people all about comrades and how to do it. We had nothing. You used to run by yourself. There was nobody to guide you. And I mean, my first comrades, I'd never heard of Botha's Hill or Drummond or Fields. I didn't even know the route. And so, you know, it's become a lot easier for guys these days.
Sorry, everyone. I'm thrilled that none of you are next to me in this room, because I'd give you all flu. I've got the flu going around, but luckily I can't give it to you through a mic. But I'm recovering. But no, just at this stage, everybody just try and stay injury-free and try and stay illness-free. You know, because this is now, we've gone into the critical phase. And on Sunday, at about 9 o'clock in the morning, you need to ask yourself, where will I be in a week's time? Casper, at my age of 59, I'll break all the bones in my body if I even think of doing a 5K. But then you're listening to this podcast or this webinar on Comrades, so clearly you're thinking about running Comrades.
So at his age of 59, you should go and start by doing park runs. And
you can do a park run. You can walk.
Start doing that.
You can walk. Yeah. So Alan, back in the day, say 1980, what time do you think you would have run Delta Park Run in? I'm going to say 20 minutes.
Yeah.
21. Yeah. It's very hilly.
In 1980, probably could have been under 20, but...
under 20, yeah, you're right.
In 1980, yeah, I was still running, you know, I was running well there. I'd say could have, although, you know, Delta's not an easy park run. Delta Park was actually my very first park run that I did. And to this day, it's still my fastest park run. And that was, what was it, 2012, I think, when it was.
Yeah.
And it's still 23 minutes I did then, and it's still my fastest park run. Yeah. Bruce had gone away. I can't hear. Now he's frozen. I have to tell him I can't hear you. So what mustn't something be done here?
Sorry, my mic is off. Sorry, I was
sorry,
going to say.
I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, Delta Park is a litmus test. Sorry, that was me being off. Bruce, your mic is off. It's back on now. Guys, yeah, it's kind of reached the end of time, and I just want to thank Alan. I love Mayor's Farm Park Run. Yeah, we've all got a favorite. I just want to thank Alan for giving his time and coming and being the normal, generous person that he is. Modest, far too modest for his own good. If you sat next to me in a pub, it would take me somewhere between 3 and 10 minutes to tell you that I've won Comrades. If you sat next to Alan all day, you'd never know. He would never tell you. And there's one story of Alan flying back from East London when we'd run buffs. And there was a guy with a Comrades blazer, and he was sitting next to Alan on the plane. And he nudged Alan. He said, "Look at all these famous runners on this plane. There's that guy, and there's a whatever." And Alan said yes, and took a sip of his castle. And then eventually this guy looked at Alan and said, "You look like a runner. Have you ever run Comrades?" And Alan says, "Yes." And we were all saying, "Don't go down that road, mate. Just don't go down that road." Then he looked at him because he was quite proud of his own comments. "Well, what's your best time?" And Alan says 5:29. And the guy goes, "Geez, that's fast." He says, "You could have won it." And Alan says, "I did." It's just typical. But thanks, guys. Lovely chat. And Gere, if you're still on the call, make us proud. I can't wait to commentate on your race. It's one of the greatest thrills and pleasures of my life. I commentate on race day, so I can't wait to commentate on Gere's race and the others and all the others, and have a great run. But we will still, those of us who next Monday, we're still going to give last bits of advice. 1 week to go next Monday. But thank you, Alan. Thanks, everyone. And,
good luck to everybody. Yeah, cool. Okay.